Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, everybody. So it's a pleasure to be seen here. So I am Tony Tiu, the founder and CEO of Renewables in Africa, Africa Clean Energy Champion, as I like to say. And today with me, I have a gentleman which we had the pleasure to talk to before, and it's good to see that he's back for part 2 of our conversation. And this is Mr. Prashaen Reddy, working for Kearney, and which is obviously a reputable company. And very recently, they have done a very interesting piece of work, piece of study. And this is what we're going to be talking about here. But before we dive into that, so Prashaen, if you don't mind me asking, because some people will not have seen yet the initial interview that we had. So would you mind introducing yourself and your company, please?
Great, thank you, Tony, and a pleasure again to be with you and your viewers and listeners. Always good to talk to you, Tony. No, fantastic. So my name is Prashaen Reddy, as you mentioned. I'm a partner with Kearney, as well as a director at the South African National Energy Association, with a large passion in energy in Africa, and continuing to do the good work that we need to do on the continent. To really take advantage of the energy transition. So a pleasure to be here. Kearney, of course, is a global management consulting firm focused across a variety of industries, one of them being the energy and process industries. And we do a lot of research and work in the space of energy and chemicals and mining. And of course, our recent research that you referred to earlier is of course in the circular economy and the value that it can add.
Excellent, that's great. And you just talk about the circular economy, and that's a term that we've heard a lot recently. And just for people listening as well, just to make sure there is no ambiguity whatsoever. So would it be possible for you to redefine or define in your own term, what do you mean by circular economy?
Yeah, no, good question, Tony. And I think it's not as complicated as people might make it seem. In the end, as you know, the world is made up of a number of production value chains, manufacturing, oil and gas, chemicals, etc. And if you look at it, we produce a lot of waste out of all of our processes. We use products, and then we throw it away, and it ends up in the oceans or waste dumps or places that pollute our planet. And really, the circular economy is about eliminating waste in its very simplistic form. Whatever resources we use in this world, it is about reusing, repurposing, and making sure that we don't create waste out of those resources. So in simple terms, just eliminating waste production and reusing it in the production process across a variety of industries.
Okay, that's great. So it's about eliminating waste, as you mentioned. Now, when I see the circular economy, I can see something going round and round. So when is it going out of the loop, right? So that's the question I'm asking myself. But I just wanted to say, so apart from just eliminating waste, is there any benefits that you can mention for businesses, but also society, so that also people can really understand what it means for them? Because one of the things that we like within Renewables in Africa is to put things in very simple terms, so that Mr. and Mrs. Everybody can see how it is actually applying to me on a daily basis. So what are the benefits for business, but also for society, do you see beyond just eliminating waste? Or maybe you can elaborate more on that. It's up to you.
No, great question, Tony. I think it's always good to make things practical. So if I think about it from a business perspective, there's a number of advantages. I think the first is that there's a rise of new industries in terms of waste management and waste recycling and waste reuse and waste repurposing. A clear example, if you will allow me, is the one in the automotive industry, where we started to see, catalytic converters that normally use platinum precious metals in their process of, removing emissions from exhaust in cars. We started to see the recycling of those once cars are being reused or taken out of commission, we started to see the recycling of those materials and then them being used back into catalytic converters. So there's a whole industry of extraction and repurposing and reuse So I think that's the first element. There's definitely a lot of opportunities for new businesses to get involved in the reuse and waste management space. There's probably also a number of businesses that are new in the circular economy that are going to be created because of this consumerism that's driving, this new products that are more reusable, new products that are more environmentally friendly or degradable, eliminating waste. So there's a whole new product development and new business models that are being created around how to deal with the circular economy.
Okay, excellent. I mentioned earlier on that with your company, Kearney, that you mentioned global consultancy. So you've done a survey looking at the scarcity of resources, and that's where obviously you then connected that with the circular economy, which you believe are quite essential. And then I'm sure that piece of work is available, and then you can tell us where we can find it. But I wanted to know, so what are the key takeaways of that survey?
Yeah, no, great question. I think the survey evaluated more than 150 businesses and companies and organizations focused on the circular economy. And what was very clear that many of these companies have made the circular economy part of their business strategy. So it's no longer, figuring out how do I incorporate this into my business. It's become a core part of their strategy, how to reuse a finite amount of resources in this world to their benefit. We've also started to see that most circular leaders also have increased revenues compared to their peers. So we're starting to see that, investing in the circular economy and reusing waste, of course, has a lot of benefits from a cost perspective. You don't have to re-extract many of these resources in terms of production, and you can reuse many resources. So you're starting to see profitability, and also you're starting to find that consumers are quite interested in buying products where they can identify that they're coming from recycled and reused materials, and therefore also driving up revenues. We are starting to see better brand recognition for companies that are involved in the circular economy. So certainly the media, governments, consumers are starting to recognize that there are businesses that are focused on the circular economy, and they're getting better traction with the markets that they operate in because of the fact that they are involved in this space. You're starting to see customer loyalty as well. So you've seen that consumers are willing, particularly in many more mature markets, but that's expanding to emerging markets, where they're starting to be quite active around the brands and products they support and they're loyal to, because they believe that they are doing good for the generations to come and the planet and their children. So I think that there's this element of how consumers are looking at it. We're also starting to see that those that are leaders in the space have actually invested up to 50% of their workforces into circular economy activities. So that's very interesting, because it's not a small function or a few people in the organization that are focused on it. It's actually significant part of rejigging the way in which their core business works, so that they actually focus themselves on circular activities. So those are some of the very key findings, I would say, out of the report. Of course, there are many more, but I would say some of the highlights are around those.
Okay, that's fine. Where can we find this survey? Is it available for public consumption? Or
yes, it is available. So if you go onto Kearney.com, look under sustainability, which is one of our practice offerings and areas, and you just need to look for the report on the leaders in the circular economy, and it will be there.
Okay, excellent. So I'm sure people will take note of it. So one of the key priorities of the continent, especially in this era of COVID, it's about employment and jobs, right? So people want job. So yes. How does the circular economy create more job for South African, which is where you are currently based, Prashaen, but more generally for Africans across the continent?
So I think firstly, one of the advantages of the circular economy is that it moves away from finite resource extraction, as you referred to earlier. Africa and South Africa is a very resource heavy extraction, let's call it economy and countries. And if you look at it from that perspective, yes, you might think, well, oh, hang on, that would mean that many jobs are on the line because we're going to be starting to look at how we extract less because we're going to reuse and recycle more. But the reality is, and like I mentioned earlier, there are many more business models that are being created out of this. So it is really about, firstly, looking for opportunities in growing these new business areas in the reuse and recycle space. And it is significant. I mean, it's not, think about everything we consume in this world. Everything we consume in this world needs to be reused and repurposed. So every single industry, whether it's chemicals or manufacturing, you name it, is starting to look at how to reuse and use these commodities going forward. So the reality is that there's a lot of business potential around these particular types of business models for the circular economy. However, the other option needs to be considered is, what do we do with all of the extracted materials we are currently using? There are new purposes, and if you start to look at the mining companies, they have already started to look at how the extraction of minerals that they have today can be used for new industries. With the rise of digital and consumer chips and more mobile devices, with 5G on the go, we're going to start to see the increased use of electronics and more mobile devices on the African continent than ever before, more connected devices. And you can start to see how some of these precious metals will start to make themselves available into these kinds of products, as well as the renewable energy space, which you are very familiar with, Tony, and your audience. We're starting to, of course, see the rise of battery storage to make renewables a baseload competitive technology. And in that space, we're also starting to see that we repurposing, let's say, the use of precious metals into industries that are growing and developing. And the advantage is that these industries will also start to look at how they can maintain the circular economy. But at the same time, we're going to start to see a demand for resources still in new industries that are starting to grow.
Okay, that's great. Thanks for that, Prashaen. So let me ask you the last question to wrap it up. And it's a bit of a tricky question because we know that waste is a big issue and across the continent. I think you can just travel to all the major cities, Lagos, Nairobi, Johannesburg, or whatever, Accra. Clearly, we have an issue there, right? So we can't deny it. So do you really believe that Africa can become a no-waste continent?
Yeah, no, good question. I think it comes down to appreciation of our environments, I think, in the first place. And also, I think if we start to understand the business models associated with waste better, I think you'll start to find more and more people taking the opportunity to look at all this waste and go, I can make money out of this. If you're, if there's one thing that we have on this continent, is a very entrepreneurial spirit. When it comes to small, medium enterprises, we are quite savvy in that space. And I would say give credit to us in that. I believe if people do look at it carefully, there's a lot of money to be made. There's a lot of business to be done in the space of waste and waste management and reuse. And if we can get those businesses up and running and we can create the environments to support them, I fundamentally believe waste, of course, will be dealt with. I think as consumers also start to appreciate this shift on the continent, maybe it's not as appreciated as it is in places like Europe or in Asia or parts of Asia. I think we will see that shift. It's just a matter of time because we have become far more aware of the impact we have on our planet and what it means for our children and generations to come. And I think that that behavior shift will come. And if not driven by consumers themselves, which will happen, it might take time on the continent, it will definitely be driven through government policy, through global policy that is shifting around climate change and pushing people to start to think, and governments to start to think, and businesses to start to think differently. Because even investors are not willing to put their money into organizations that are not starting to think around reuse, environmentally concerns and challenges. If you don't do that, then of course you're also not going to get the money to grow.
Excellent. Well, I can safely say that every time you come to this platform, Prashaen, we're always learning a lot. You're always giving us very good insight on the job that you are doing, and I can say that I definitely will be making sure that I will download your study to look at that much more closely. So again, I can say to people watching us, you want to go to Kearney.com. It's one of the practice looking about sustainability, and a bit of a click, I'm sure you should be able to find that. So if not, I'm sure we can always point them to the right direction by reaching out to your services. So Prashaen, I can definitely say that it's definitely not a waste to have you here for the second time. And I'm very much hoping that we're going to see you for a third time lucky. But between now and then, so I wish you a very good day. And then as usual, good to see you.
Yes, thank you, Tony. And thank you to your listeners and viewers.
Thank you. Thanks for that.
Thank you.